I believe it was the depth psychologist Carl Jung who once said, everything that is unconscious in ourselves we discover in our neighbor, and we treat him accordingly. I don't know why that popped in my head. Anyway, here's a clip of the President of the United States laughing about our neighbors from the South being eaten alive by alligators.
The snakes are fast, but alligators are, but we're going to teach them how to run away from an alligator, okay? If they escape prison, how to run away. Don't run in a straight line. Run like this. And you know what? Your chances go up about 1%. Okay? Not a good thing.
And if you're wondering why Donald Trump seems so happy there, it's because A, cruelty is the point, and B, we just opened up a detention center in my home state of Florida. Here's Caroline Leavitt practically salivating over the so-called alligator Alcatraz, and once again putting the Christian in Christianity.
The facility is in the heart of the Everglades and will be informally known as Alligator Alcatraz. There is only one road leading in, and the only way out is a one-way flight. It is isolated and surrounded by dangerous wildlife and unforgiving terrain. The facility will have up to 5,000 beds to house, process, and deport criminal illegal aliens. This is an efficient and low-cost way to help carry out the largest mass deportation campaign in American history.
All right, I hate to go all nerd on you guys, but I did go to the University of Florida, and I did get a degree in something called zoology, and I'm not joking, they did teach us how to wrangle alligators, and you're not going to believe it. The president here is wrong when he's talking about alligators. What you actually want to do is come up to them from behind and make sure they're fully awake, and then you want to align your body with the vertical axis of the alligator. That way you can avoid tail swipes and bites, right? And then you want to work your hands up that vertical axis over its neck and over its eyes. You don't have to worry about hurting its eyes because of the shape of the alligator's skull, and also their mouth is super easy to keep closed once you're up there. It's getting it back open that's really difficult, so what you really want to do is run away from it, and you want to run away from it in a straight line. And oh my god, how did we get here? Why am I talking about this? Oh right, it's because of all the cruelty and all of the fear of the other and all of the constantly needing a politically powerless outgroup to serve as a scapegoat and a distraction for the middle and working class Americans who have a stranglehold around their neck that is constantly tightening and was put there by the elites. Speaking of elites, here's Florida Governor Ron Lego Man DeSantis explaining just how cool all of this is. And I warn you, the clip you're about to see is of a couple of just really cool guys. Really cool.
When you think of the imagery of Alcatraz, Alcatraz is surrounded by a bay. Here in the Everglades, you're actually surrounded by gators and pythons.
So this is as secure as it gets. I mean, if a criminal alien were to escape from here somehow, and I don't think they will, you've got nowhere to go. I mean, what are you going to do? Trudge through the swamp and dodge alligators on the way back to 50, 60 miles just to get to civilization? Not going to happen. So not only that is it secure, it also takes this deportation mission out of the hair of our local and state law enforcement. This has no impact on Florida residents because some of that stuff can have an impact on them if it's in more populated areas. And so logistically, this really answers the call. All you need is a little bus to move them, about 2,000 feet that way, then get on a plane and they're gone.
See what I mean? Pretty cool, right? How did these conservatives get so cool? Look at those shades. Look at those aviators. And what's cool is when Ron DeSantis goes into bootlicking mode, he doesn't even have to bend down. So clearly conservatives think this whole disgusting thing is awesome. But the question is, do they also find it funny? Like, what's the point in putting human beings in cages and threatening them with cruel and unusual forms of execution if you can't make a little jokey joke about it? So here's a clip of whatever this is.
I feel like this meeting started with a pound of weed. You know what I'm saying? Like they were just like, hey, what if we? Stick with me now. Put detainees by the Everglades with the alligators and the pythons. And another guy was like, that really works.
That's not how weed works. It's not how weed works. You don't know how weed works. You don't know how weed works, and you don't know how alligators work. Maybe you should leave Florida. That's all I'm saying. I've never seen someone smoke so much weed that they became jovially homicidal. But then again, I'm not a Republican, so what do I know? Now, earlier, when Ron Babyface DeSantis was wowing us with his charisma, he mentioned how this detention center, otherwise known as cages, will have no impact on Florida residents. And I think that's a very important qualifier, because he didn't say it wouldn't have any impact on Florida. He said it wouldn't have any impact on Florida residents. And here's the thing. Look, I know I'm venting here a little bit, but I love Florida. All right? I know it's crazy, but I love it. I love the people there. I love Florida wildlife, whether it's snakes or alligators or lizards or Florida man. I think it's all great. And I worry that this ridiculous PR stunt will, in fact, have a negative impact on Florida, the place, the land, and not just the physical place, but also a place that holds sacred value for a lot of cultures, specifically cultures that were here before we arrived. You remember that? We arrived here. We arrived into this area. And we didn't learn any of the languages. We actually suppressed the languages and then introduced alcohol to native cultures and then used that to decimate them economically and then used the poverty we created as justification to deny them the right to self-governance and exclude them from the Constitution. You know, we did things the white way. So here is a clip.
We have to advocate for all of us. And I don't know if any of you have prayed to a spiritual place. Or maybe you go to church to find that spiritual place, or wherever your spiritual place is. Find it in your hearts to pray for these people who are lost so that they can become human beings again. Because if they're human beings again, this will stop.
I think that was very well said. Now, if it didn't quite hit for you, or even if it did, I do recommend this book. It's called Indigenizing Philosophy Through the Land by Brian Burkhart. The subtitle is A Trickster Methodology for Decolonizing Environmental Ethics and Indigenous Futures. And one of the things Burkhart really drives home in it is just how different like our modern Western relationship to things like time and space is compared to indigenous cultures. And another thing it does is reveal just how wildly condescending this next clip is.
There's pretty significant, unsurprising pushback from the left on this, and also from conservationists, which was originally what kind of hampered this site from becoming a major airport over the years and being used in another way. So there's pushback about protecting the Everglades.
The alligators?
No, well, maybe. Yeah, maybe. I guess protect the alligators is the argument. But to protect the Everglades and also tribal interests nearby. So that's the pushback that's happening there on the ground from the other side of the political aisle, who is tied in these other interests as well when they look at this.
Tribal interests. Yeah, tribal interests. Tribal interests, I think, is a great example of the kind of abstract, sterile language that is often used to minimize the legitimate, complex, and multifaceted concerns of Native peoples. Because for them, this isn't just a cruel joke. Nor is it about protecting a delicate ecosystem. It is those things, but it's also about spiritual bankruptcy. I think it's easy to forget that some cultures don't have to build huge megachurches with like Jumbotron-sized screens in order to connect with God. They can just look around. And when they do look around, they don't see useless swamp or man-eating alligators. They see the sacred reflected back at them. It is a way of understanding the world and time and place that most of us, myself included, don't really have access to, at least not on any regular basis. So what do? We chalk it up to tribal interests so we can dismiss them and ignore them, which is just something we're incredibly good at, because spiritual bankruptcy, it seems, is a small price to pay to keep us from ever having to look in the mirror. I think that if the United States ever were to look in the mirror, I don't know that we would see the sacred reflected back at us, you know? So I think we can approach this problem from all of these different angles. You can approach it from a humanitarian angle, or an illegal angle, or constitutional angle, or an environmental angle. But there's also something to be said about the spiritual component, you know what I mean? Which I believe we can only access through empathy and some kind of epistemic humility. Or, hear me out, the other option is we could all buy aviator sunglasses and pretend we're in Top Gun 3, as we were called to do by Paul in his letter to the Ephesians. I'm just kidding. Paul didn't write the letter to Ephesians, at least not entirely. It was very likely, at least significantly, written by his enslaved assistants. And you can read more about that in God's Ghostwriters, Enslaved Christians and the Making of the Bible by Candida Moss. Excellent book, highly recommended. Am I reading as a coping mechanism these days? It's none of your business. You're not my therapist. I'll see you next time.